Ever wondered how modern digital applications are actually built? From the ground up? It's a lot like building a skyscraper. You can't just start with the fancy penthouse suite. You have to begin with a rock-solid foundation and then build your way up, layer by layer. So let's take a look at the architectural blueprint for the kind of digital products that win today. We're going to break this whole process down into 4 distinct architectural layers. First, we'll start with the literal foundation, which is the cloud. Then we'll build the engine, the back end. After that, we'll craft the user experience with the front end. And finally, we'll add the penthouse view, the intelligence layer with AI. All right, first things first, the foundation, the cloud. Look, before you or your team writes a single line of code, you have to answer a critical question. Where is this thing going to live? And for pretty much every modern application, the answer is the cloud. This isn't just about following a trend, it's a strategic imperative. It's about scalability and speed. This is a fundamental architectural choice that's going to dictate your entire operational model. So, what is cloud computing really? At its core, it represents a massive shift from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. Instead of you sinking a ton of money into physical data centers, buying racks and servers, you're essentially renting access to world-class infrastructure from providers like AWS or Google Cloud. This is huge because it frees up your capital and lets you focus on what actually matters, building your product, not managing hardware. Now, when you go to the cloud, you've got choices: IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. And this isn't just a technical detail, it's a critical strategic trade-off. Think of it as a spectrum. On one end, you have IaaS, which gives you maximum control, perfect for really complex custom architectures. But that control comes with a lot of operational overhead. On the other end, PaaS abstracts a lot of that away so your developers can move faster, but you do give up some of that fine-grained control. The right choice here? It completely depends on your business goals and your team's expertise. So, what do these choices really get you? Well, they translate directly into competitive advantages. Cost efficiency isn't just about saving a few bucks. It's about reallocating that capital from hardware into product development. And scalability, that's not just a technical feature. It's the ability to handle 1 million new users overnight without your system completely crashing. This foundation is literally what makes hypergrowth possible. Okay, with our foundation firmly in the cloud, let's move up to the next layer, the engine of our digital skyscraper. This is the back end. It's all the hidden machinery, the plumbing, the electrical grid, the stuff that processes data, runs the business logic, and just makes everything work. It's the critical link between what the user sees and all the data underneath. A solid backend is really built on 3 core pillars. First, your server-side language. This is what executes your core logic. Second, the database, which is basically the system's long-term memory. And the choice you make here, say between SQL and NoSQL, has huge implications for your data consistency and ability to scale later on. And finally, the API. This is the glue. A well-designed, decoupled API is the hallmark of a system that can grow and be maintained over time. Now, you don't build this from scratch. You use backend frameworks. But here's the thing. They're accelerators, but they also impose constraints. A framework like Django is what we call opinionated. It makes a lot of decisions for you, which is great for moving fast at the beginning, but it can create lock-in. On the flip side, a minimalist framework like Express.js gives you a ton of flexibility, but it also puts more of the architectural responsibility on your team. This isn't just a technical choice, it's a strategic one that affects who you can hire and how fast you can pivot down the road. So, the engine is running. Now let's go up to the part of our skyscraper that everyone actually sees and interacts with, the front end. This is the facade, the lobby, the user experience. And let's be clear, it doesn't matter how powerful your backend is. If the front end is slow, clunky, or confusing, the user will think your entire product is broken. Perceived performance is everything. The modern front end is really built on this core principle of separation of concerns. You have HTML, which defines the raw structure, the bones. Then you have CSS, which controls all the presentation and styling, the skin. And finally, you have JavaScript, which handles all the interactivity and dynamic behavior, the muscles. This modular approach is absolutely fundamental to building a complex UI that you can actually maintain without going crazy. And just like the backend, you're not building this from scratch. Front-end frameworks are essential for taming the complexity of modern user interfaces. React, for example, is built around this idea of reusable components, which is fantastic for large teams. Angular is more of an all-in-one, comprehensive toolkit.
great for big enterprise apps. And Vue kind of strikes a balance between flexibility and ease of use. The question isn't which one is the best, it's which one is the best fit for our team and our project. All right, finally, we've reached the top floor, the penthouse, the AI layer. And this is not an afterthought. It's a transformative layer that takes in all the data flowing through the entire stack, from user clicks on the front end to business logic in the back end, and uses it to make the entire application intelligent, predictive, and adaptive. So, how do we actually approach this? Well, from a strategic perspective, it's not about using AI just for the sake of using AI. It's about starting with a real business problem. Are you trying to improve user retention? Are you trying to make your operations more efficient? Once you know the problem, you can see if AI-driven personalization, prediction, or automation is the right tool for the job. Let's talk about the most common application, personalization. The mechanism sounds simple, right? A model analyzes user behavior, what they click on, what they look at, what they buy, to predict what they'll want next. But the execution is incredibly complex. It requires a really robust data pipeline to collect and process all that data in near real time. This is the engine that powers the recommendation systems you see on Netflix and Amazon. The other major application is automation. Think about AI-powered chatbots. They use natural language processing to understand what a user is asking for and provide instant support. This can dramatically improve your operational efficiency. It allows your customer service to scale without having to hire more people in a linear fashion, which is a massive consideration for any growing business.
When you look at all these applications, there's a common theme. It's all about using AI for sophisticated pattern recognition at a scale that humans just can't achieve. In finance, that means spotting weird transaction patterns to stop fraud. In healthcare, it's finding subtle patterns in medical scans that might point to a disease. This intelligence layer is fundamentally about leveraging data to automate and improve decision-making, especially in high-stakes environments.
Now, that quote sounds pretty grand, I know, but let's bring it back down to a tactical level. Integrating AI is no longer some optional, nice-to-have innovation project. For more and more businesses, it's becoming a core operational requirement just to stay competitive. It is fundamentally changing the calculus of how businesses operate and create value. So there you have it, the 4 essential layers of a modern digital product. We started with the cloud foundation, built the backend engine and the front-end experience, and topped it off with the AI intelligence layer. Each layer is distinct, but they're all interconnected. This is the architecture that has defined software for the last decade. So the real question for every founder, operator, and developer out there now is, what's the next layer? What's the next floor we're all going to add to this digital skyscraper?